Hello everybody. Today we're going to make a really quick video on how to properly mix body filler and then spread it. A lot of people mix it with way too much hardener in it, and they show you pictures of their Bondo or something else and it's red or very blue, and that's just too much. It'll work up way too fast on you. It'll get too hard too quick, and then you'll have very little work time. So I'm using one of my favorites, which is 3M Platinum, and it looks like this. It's a very creamy filler. It's not a cheap filler like the Bondo you buy at Walmart. I don't recommend ever using that crap. This is very comparable to Rage, made by Evercoat. I have seen a lot of other body guys say they prefer this to the 3M Platinum Plus. And then we have a hardener, which is a blue hardener. There's red hardeners and blue hardeners, but this requires a red hardener. So real quickly, I've got one of my spreaders, and they make these in a bunch of different sizes. I'm just going to be using this one, smaller one, because we've just got some little teeny dings in the side of this car that we're going to be working. Well, I should say I've already worked them out as much as I can. Now I'm just going to skim them with some filler. And then I've got this disposable mixing board, and it's just a mixing board with sheets of paper you rip off. Although what I do is I tend to use a piece of paper over and over, and then once the filler on it has dried, which happens very quickly, I just scrape off the chunks and the ridges, and then I'm ready to use it again. So I've got my filler here. I don't recommend mixing it because you don't want to mix air pockets into it. Although, to tell you the truth, I just did mix this stuff because it's been sitting for a while, and there's not a lot of issues with that because of the way I mix it with a hardener, and I'll show you that. So I'm not going to make a whole lot because I want to get it all spread before it kicks, and I'm not using a whole lot for these little dings. So I'm just going to take a little bit, make myself just a little pile like that. I know some guys like to mix up a load and do as much as they can. Actually, that's even more than I wanted to. But I prefer to make fewer, or I should say, smaller batches that I have to mix more often instead of having to waste a bunch. The second part is adding the hardener. A lot of people add way too much hardener, and it does not take a lot. I already mixed it up, but I wanted to tell you one more thing. Loosen the lid just a little bit. Squeeze it until you just start to see the hardener come out. Now you've got all the air out of there. Now put the lid back on. You've got all the air out. You gotta knead this sucker. Get it kneaded real nicely like this until you get all the liquid mixed back in with the solids. Real important to knead it, and it's helpful to squeeze that air out because then you don't have a bunch of air in here, which makes it so it doesn't mix as nicely. And I've already kneaded this, so I'm not going to knead it anymore. I just wanted to demonstrate that for you. Okay, so I take my lid off. I'm just going to add just a little bit. Ooh, that actually might have been, no, that's about right. They say, on the instructions, I always say, lay a string, lay a thin ribbon all the way across there. If you do that, I absolutely guarantee you it's going to kick way too fast. It's going to get really hard on you, and you're not going to be able to do anything. It's too much. And then we just mix it. And so I mix it just by spreading it around just like this. You see blue streaks, just keep working it into each other until you've got it all mixed together. I'm squishing it, and this is squeezing the air out. That's what I was talking about earlier. If you do get a little bit of air mixed in, it's not a big deal because I'm smashing it across the bottom there, and it gets all those air bubbles worked out, and then I won't get little pinholes and whatnot in it when I'm done. So it comes out as just a light blue finish, or light blue color. That's exactly what you want. You don't want something this dark. That's way too dark. You've got way too much hardener in there. So I've got it. And now I'm just going to gather it up because I'm just doing little spots. I'm wasting too much time talking here. I'm going to gather it up. Okay. Follow me with the camera and try not to show what a disaster my shop is. I've got the light turned down pretty low in here because that casts shadows. It actually helps me to see the spots I'm going to be mixing. Try not to show my socks and sandals either. I'm breaking a cardinal sin there. So I've got, oh, she says too late, you saw my socks and sandals. I got some little dings here that have kind of worked out. So I'm just going to spread some of this on there real quick. And, oh, I got a bunch of pinholes in that one there. And some guys will do this real pretty. I'm not, because that's what I'll just sand it off. That's not a problem to me. Now, I've got to find some others. There's a little teeny guy right there. Those will sand off just fine. And then somewhere, well, right along here, there's a little ridge. I just kind of want to work that guy out. Now you can see how this is already coming off less creamy because it's already starting to kick. It's very hot right now. It is about 90 degrees in the shop, so that makes this kick very quickly. I don't try to work this stuff a lot because you'll see it start to happen, what's happening now. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and work it too long just for the purpose of this video. You try to work it too long, you'll see it won't be creamy anymore. You'll start to pull chunks off like this, and normally I would be done, but this is a good demonstration so we can see what happens. You should just stop at that point because it's starting to kick, it's hardening up already. And then in about 10 to 20 minutes, it's gonna be ready to go. And then what I do is I just take a paper towel and I wipe this off. If you need to put a little lacquer thinner on there to help get it off, that is pretty effective at removing it too. And then I just go mix up my next batch. And you can see how fast that started setting up. That's why I prefer just to do little batches and little dings. I don't waste a lot of time getting it pretty because otherwise it'll start kicking on me too quick, and the more hardener you mix in there, it's gonna kick even faster on you. Okay, just a few more tips I forgot to say during the spreading here of the filler. So, first thing I meant to say is the surface preparation. This is sprayed in epoxy. This is the SPI epoxy I made in a video yesterday, and this is the result of that. I sprayed it out. So this is epoxy, about 24 hours old. About 24 to 48 hours of age is about the optimal or ideal time to spread the filler on the epoxy. The epoxy has a 7-day cure window, so you don't need to sand this before you put the filler down. You can just put the filler straight down, no sanding on the epoxy, especially within 24 to 48 hours after doing so. The other part is you may want to put the filler on in the spots you want to fix just a little heavier than you think you might need to, because then you can always sand it away, and it kind of prevents you from having to have too much material, or I'm sorry, too little material on there, and then you got to go back and add more. So speaking of too much material, you don't want to have any more than a 1/4 inch of filler on there at absolute worst case scenario. And if you do require a 1/4 inch of filler, you might want to go back and think about doing a little more bump work there. I only like to do a little skim coat just to fill in these little teeny dents and little teeny dings just to get the final last bit smoothed out after I've done my bump work. Now, I don't know if it'll show it, but check this out. See how hard that is already? Can you see that? That's already hard. So this is already setting up, and I just spread this, just a few minutes ago. That's already flaking off just like that. So that's a good sign that your hardener is working. If you were to mix too little in here, you would find this would not harden and it would stay soft, and all I can say is good luck with that one because it is a pain to get this stuff removed. If you mix in too much hardener, it would kick way too quickly on you. It'd get really hot, and you probably wouldn't have a lot of time to work with it. So one more quick comment I wanted to make was how wide you spread the filler over the ding. So on some of these these are really small dings, and it's not gonna take a lot of filler to fill it, first of all, but it's not a large area too, so that's why I just kind of did a little swipe, just like I did here. And my plan is, you know, I'll hit this with the sander and remove almost all of it except for the immediate area that had the little ding in it, and then I'll get that so it's completely straight and smooth. And when I rub my hand over it at the end, which you always rub your hand out flat, just like this, I would not fill any low spot there. If you were filling a slightly larger spot, or maybe had a big weld down the side from a skin you welded on, those you want to taper it out a lot more, because otherwise if it's something that's going to give you a big hump, you don't want that to be visible. So you're going to need a lot more filler so you can give yourself a nice taper. For just little dings like what I'm doing here, you know, the filler is going to fill the low spot, and then I want to sand it down so it's just nice and level with the rest of the panel. That's not as critical. So don't put too much filler, or don't put too little filler on, depending on what you need to fill, because you need enough around the outside that you'll be able to sand it to taper it into that repair. You don't want to be looking down the side of your car and see a sudden bump where your filler is. You want it to be nice and gradual so you can block that out smooth and never be none the wiser that there's ever any kind of repair there. So that should be the final update. Hope this was helpful, and thanks for watching.